We are your heroes. We are here to serve and protect you. Stormfront's violation of that special relationship, of that trust, is unacceptable. Justice.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Charlie. This is going to be my video for The Boys Season 2, Episode 8 finale. There was so much stuff that happened, so many WTF moments, and so many comic book Easter eggs, so this video is going to be a little bit longer than normal. I will be doing videos for The Boys Season 3. It has been renewed for Season 3, so I'll explain a little bit about that at the end of the video, too. If you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to get all the videos. We'll do a new Amazon giveaway. All you have to do to enter is be a subscriber and leave your favorite moment from the episode on the video. Careful for spoilers for everything that happened during the episode if you haven't seen it yet, obviously. So I'm just going to number these a little bit differently as we go along, just because there's so much stuff to cover. Starting at the beginning, so the episode begins with that fake Vought PSA about how to survive a supervillain attack, and it's so over the top and so crazy when you actually think about what it is they're telling people to do. Homelander introduces the law, quote-unquote. Obviously, that's a clever reference to the new metaphorical laws and policies Stormfront is trying to introduce to America as part of her larger plot to cleanse the world. And it's just a funny acronym of their version of duck and cover, like make it sound like something funny so people don't really pay attention to how crazy it really is. It's very pro-gun, like everyone is supposed to have a gun in that classroom. Even the little kids use anything that you can, like the teacher has a gun. They tell the little kids to impale someone on the American flag. That's a metaphor if you've ever seen one. But then we meet up with Jim Beaver's character who comes back. We saw him at the beginning of the season meeting with Stan Edgar about trying to regulate Compound V and joking about telling the president what to do, giving him marching orders, which is sort of a long game for Vought. When he yells at his wife, who's named Jodie, that's actually a Supernatural reference. Jodie was a character on Supernatural. There were a couple other Supernatural Easter eggs later in the episode too that you may have spotted. I'll point them out when we get to that part of the video. But he confesses to them that he absolutely hates what's going on. He doesn't like the idea of Compound V getting out in public because now apparently the military is going to get their hands on it and they're going to start dosing soldiers with it. Then ICE is going to get their hands on it too. If you're not familiar with who the ICE agency is, they're basically the people that handle immigration, customs, border control. So it's like they're implying that Stormfront's reality is coming to pass in America. They're going to start kicking out all the other races that she doesn't like. But they reveal that doses of Compound V are being sold by Vought now for $5 million a pop, which is kind of a comic book Easter egg. It's a bit of a discount, though, from what it costs in the comics. It costs billions of dollars to manufacture, which is one of the reasons why you don't see a ton of superheroes flying around all over the place. Starlight says goodbye to her mother, who gives her that cross. She's still agnostic. She doesn't really believe in God anymore, but they kind of use it as a good luck charm or a ward of protection. It's meant to be a parallel for Butcher's St. Christopher medal that he got from Becca that he then gives to Ryan at the end of the episode, saying now your mother can watch over you and protect you. Butcher and the boys, though, are making contingency plans for how to take down and neutralize each of the different superheroes' powers, starting with Stormfront. We'll use EMP on her. Of course, most of that didn't wind up working, because when they actually did get down to fighting at the end of the episode, Stormfront blew up both of their cars with all their weapons. They make some more jokes about Black Noir and the Almond Joys. He really didn't make an appearance during the episode. I'll talk about him in a second, though, because there were some comic book Easter eggs that I think that they'll pay off during Season 3, some teasers that they set up. Then we go to Homelander and Stormfront. They're trying to figure out who was popping all the heads at the trial, confirming that they weren't actually behind it. She gets super racist, referring to Stan Edgar, Giancarlo Esposito's character, which they pay off later in the episode when Butcher throws her in his face. Like, how can a black man like you believe in turning her into America's sweetheart when she's the Nazi that she is? And he confesses that he absolutely hates her guts, but he's kind of forced to deal with her because she's good for business right now because she's so popular, and it's all about share price with him. He's being a businessman. When has it ever not been about business in the history of America? They sort of pay that off in a really clever way by the end of the episode, too. But even though Homelander is still kind of under her spell, so to speak, at this point in the episode, he does sound more concerned about the rest of the Seven than Stormfront, who's just ready to throw them aside. Like, Black Noir is a vegetable, Lamplighter is a charcoal briquette, none of that matters, because now we can take advantage of this situation to advance our cause. When Homelander questions her plans, though, it gets really hardcore. What do we do about the other billions of people on the planet who aren't part of your quote-unquote master race that you want to create with Compound V? She says Friedrich Vought, her former husband and the founder of the company, had a quote-unquote solution for everything. This should be a pretty clear reference in your minds, even if you didn't pay attention in grade school history class. That's all about Hitler's final solution. So there's no confusion about what it is she intends to do with billions of people that she deems to be inferior on the planet. We go from the worst couple on the show, though, to the most wholesome couple, Starlight and Huey, as they're going to try and get Queen Maeve to help them out. They pay off the Billy Joel Easter eggs during the season finally and explain why Huey is so obsessed with Billy Joel, why he keeps watching the music video, why he keeps listening to his music. It all goes back to his mom, who's apparently still alive, and I definitely think they'll bring her on the show in a future season. Hopefully they'll cast some really big-name actress. But it's the whole idea that they had this special connection through the music of Billy Joel, then one day when he was a little kid, she just took off, so he's just completely stuck on it, like he's frozen in that moment when he was a little kid. The funny thing about Huey's father, too, he was played by Simon Pegg during season 1. That in and of itself is a comic book Easter egg because when The Boys comic book was originally published, Huey was drawn to be like Simon Pegg. He was basically the model for Huey's character. But when it came time to make the TV show, Simon Pegg was too old to play Huey, so they just cast him as his father. It was funny to watch Queen Maeve react to Huey. She was completely unimpressed, and she winds up calling him a twink a couple different times, even though she comes around by the end of the episode. The whole thing with Queen Maeve, that big speech about her being tired, kind of giving up because nothing ever changes, that's meant to be a comic book Easter egg. In the comics, Queen Maeve is sort of given up and just sort of goes along with what Homelander wants to do because she just doesn't think she's going to be able to stop him. But in the comics, she does wind up eventually helping the boys, just like she does during the TV show. We finally meet back up with Becca, who has gone around all over East Flatbush to every single pawn shop and finally finds Butcher's. She explains what happened between Homelander and Stormfront taking Ryan away. Butcher vows to help her, even though he's not completely on board with the idea of Ryan the entire episode, although he does uphold his promise to her ultimately. The whole thing with Becca and Butcher during the episode is that she just hammers home to him he cannot grow up to be like Homelander. And there's this obvious arc that they're setting up for Ryan that I'll talk about in a second too when we get to that part of the episode. They start to finally pay off some of the church Easter eggs, and it just winds up being a little bit sillier than I expected it to be. They didn't completely pay off the Fresca jokes, they just continued to make more Fresca jokes. But they do reveal a little bit about the relationship between the church and Vought. So Stan Edgar knows exactly what's going on with the church about all their shady dealings, the fact that they have all these money scams running, and the church has all these secrets, all this dirt on superheroes and what Vought is really doing. So they both sort of have each other at their throats, but it's a business relationship and they're both businessmen, so they kind of understand each other. But at least at this part in the episode, the Deep does make it back onto the Seven, so Stan Edgar reveals that he doesn't really have any ill feelings against the Deep or A-Train or any other superheroes for that matter. It's really just him running a sports team, trying to put the best team together. What is the most financially profitable team that I can assemble? But they revealed the only reason that they're not letting A-Train back on, at least at this part in the episode, is because Stormfront is still around. She's a problem, but Edgar is forced to humor her, and she doesn't want A-Train anywhere near the Seven because she's super racist. He eavesdrops, hears the whole thing, which causes him to turn on Stormfront in the Seven, getting all the info on her backstory and leaking it from the church's archives to Huey and Starlight. The funny thing about this scene too, like he just shows up in the back of their car, they sort of play it for comedy, they totally freak out, but you can see the whole time on Huey's face, he's having flashbacks to the beginning of season 1 when A-Train killed his last girlfriend with his super speed. Like you could just see him just clench up, even though technically A-Train wouldn't be able to do that to Starlight because she's so powerful. Homelander and Stormfront try to have that family quote-unquote moment with Ryan at their in-universe version of Planet Hollywood. That's what Planet Vought is meant to be a reference to, which is superhero paraphernalia for the Seven all over the place. But his powers start acting up because he's in public, he can't handle it, there's so many people. He's just been isolated his whole life, so he just gets a bit agoraphobic and starts freaking out. Homelander recognizes what's happening to him because he went through something similar as a child and flies him off to his cabin in upstate New York. He has a really nice talk with Ryan. He's actually pretty genuine. He clearly does want to be a good dad to him, but he doesn't know how to do that. He doesn't even know how to be a regular human being. He's still very psychotic, but he's not quite as crazy as Stormfront. That's the whole thing, is they want to make him seem like he's trying to be rational when he's standing next to Stormfront because she's so over the top crazy. But then Butcher has his big meeting with Stan Edgar, and they make their bargain to help control Homelander by taking Ryan away. That's the whole pitch. You can't control him when he has Ryan. He's the only deterrent that you have, the only person who's powerful enough, potentially, to deal with Homelander. If you've read the comic books, this is obviously a very big change because in the comics, there is no Ryan at this point in the story. There are ways that Vought has of dealing with Homelander and plans, contingencies that they have, but apparently they're not going to do that on the TV show. So it seems like they want you to think that Ryan will ultimately be their long-term plan for controlling Homelander. They have that funny moment with Homelander and Stormfront trying to teach Ryan how to use his heat vision on a doll of the deep, which is obviously funny for a couple reasons. One, because it's so WTF the way they're trying to teach him, but mostly because Homelander also wanted to laser the deep a couple times during season 1. Stormfront also goes way over the top, trying to brainwash Ryan with her whole Nazi rhetoric about white genocide. Even Homelander is confused by what she's trying to shovel into Ryan, like, WTF did you just say? That doesn't make any sense. I think when it comes to Stormfront, even Homelander, as crazy and twisted as he is, understands that Nazis are fundamentally bad. He learned that, and everything that they believe in is bad, so Stormfront is bad, but he's just so thirsty for human connection and someone to love him that he just kind of ignores a lot of his own thoughts on the matter. And I love how she's trying to be super motherly in a very evil, sinister way, but then on a dime drops an F-bomb when she gets the alert about the news of her and the secrets leaking out to the press. People start memeing her the same way that she was memeing Homelander at the beginning of the season. She completely loses it. The car, you'll notice, that runs over her in the meme is actually a black Impala. That's another supernatural Easter egg. They're actually ending that show right now. Jensen Ackles actually bought that car in real life, and he's going to be playing Soldier Boy during The Boys Season 3. So there's just a lot of supernatural Easter eggs in and around the series. The funny follow-up to this scene, too, is when Homelander catches the news with Ryan. You notice that he's drinking another glass of milk. I think this is the final glass of milk that we have during Season 2, but I'm sure he'll be drinking more milk during Season 3. He probably has a whole fridge that's just milk. But then the boys set off their plan to snag Ryan using an ultrasonic noise device built by Vought that only affects animals and people with super sensitive hearing like Homelander and Ryan. They grab him, but Homelander realizes when seeing the Vought logo that Edgar is behind this, trying to take Ryan away from him. Press F in the chat for all those guards because clearly Butcher sacrifices them knowingly because he leaves the phone there, so they show up and they give themselves away when they call his name out. Did you just say the name Butcher? He goes full American Psycho on them, lasers the first guard, and then just walks out later, just leaving you wondering what he did to the rest, covered in their gore. But then Stormfront shows up, stopping them from escaping by throwing the car with her lightning attack. They had a couple really cool special effects during the episode. They have a big standoff with Starlight, Kimiko, and the boys, and you kind of see what they're doing with her big speech about spinning the truth to fit her narrative. Like, what is truth really when anyone will believe whatever I say? Kimiko isn't quite able to defeat her on her own, but she does have a real badass moment when she twists her own head around back on straight, just because of the way her Compound V powers work. The thing about Compound V, and they kind of referenced this a little earlier in the episode, is that Vought can actually use Compound V to bring dead superheroes back to life. No joke. But when they do that, the Risen usually come back as mindless zombie-like versions of themselves. Shells, really. That was kind of what they were referencing when they were saying that Black Noir is alive, but he's kind of a vegetable, and they can't really tell. This also might have something to do with what happens to Stormfront at the end of the episode as well, based on the speech that Homelander gives to the press. I'll explain that in a second. But Stormfront goes full Emperor Palpatine Star Wars with her lightning blast. She even kind of has her own version of a Star Wars Anakin Skywalker Revenge of the Sith Darth Vader moment too on Mustafar when she gets the classic Anakin Skywalker burns all over her body and loses a bunch of her limbs. All we needed here was for Ryan to say, "I have the high ground."
It's over, Anakin! I have the high ground!
But it takes Queen Maeve showing up to help them out to take her down. They have this big girl fight team up against her, and they pay off that Avengers Endgame girls get it done joke from their Justice League Unite the Seven movie that they were doing earlier this season. Like Frenchie even literally says, girls really do get it done. When Becca stabs Stormfront's eye out too, that's another big comic book Easter egg. Stormfront lost his eye because he was a man in the comics when Butcher and the boys start laying into him. They pay off the whole heat vision training scene that Ryan had earlier in the episode with the line about protecting the ones you love from people who want to hurt them, only now it's Stormfront that's trying to hurt his mother. Because Ryan doesn't totally understand how to use his powers, he just gives off this giant 100% area of effect blast to neutralize her, but in doing so accidentally kills his mother, Becca. The idea of collateral damage is a big thing during The Boys comic book. Remember at the beginning of the season 2, when they were talking about collateral damage, The amount of collateral damage that Compound V superheroes cause in the world of the boys is on average over 30%, super high, mostly because very few of them understand how to use their powers, just like Ryan has no idea how to use them. Butcher says his final goodbyes, and just as she dies, he almost goes for Ryan with the crowbar. You can see for just a brief second, and that's another big comic book Easter egg. So in the comics, Butcher finds his wife dying after he thinks that Homelander has had his way with her, and because of his super DNA, she gets pregnant on the spot and the baby just grows super fast in her womb, emerges with superpowers, but just as it does, comic book Butcher kills the baby before it can get any bigger. Homelander kind of loses it a little bit in sadness when he sees what happened to Stormfront. Obviously he cared about her, even though I think in reality he recognized how terrible she was. She's on the edge of death, and she's so delirious from pain that she starts speaking in her native German tongue as if she's back in World War II. Then Homelander and Butcher have another standoff just like at the end of Season 1, with Butcher threatening to kill everyone if Homelander doesn't back off. You start to see Homelander go crazier and crazier. He's sort of descending more into villainy, and he has another American Psycho type moment when he's covered in blood laughing maniacally. It takes Queen Maeve threatening to release the airplane video to get him to back off and promise to leave Starlight and the rest of the boys alone. I love the sound editing here too, when you can hear the crowd chanting his name before they transition, and Maeve says, "No one will ever love you again." He realizes that he cares more about that feeling than getting revenge on the boys. Then at the press conference later, Edgar pins everything that's happened, including the head popping on Stormfront. Homelander lies, apologizing for not realizing how evil she was sooner, but when Homelander says Stormfront is being held at an undisclosed location and will pay for her crimes, that might also be a reference to Compound V zombies from the comic book. When the camera starts to zoom in on his eyes and the audio starts to go out, that seems like it's meant to be a reference to Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho, where Norman Bates is sitting in the prison cell and the camera starts to zoom in on him and he goes full-blown psycho. So I think this is them just pushing Homelander more in a villain direction heading into Season 3. Mother's Milk winds up getting back with his family finally. They pay off Frenchie and Kimiko's relationship as they go dancing together. Butcher finally sees Ryan off heading into government protection with Becca's St. Christopher medal. And they have one of the most twisted Homelander scenes ever. So this is him jerking off on top of the Empire State Building, going on and on, "I can do whatever I want, seeming like he's totally and completely lost it. This was actually meant to be a scene that they did during Season 1, but Amazon actually wouldn't let them do it. They said that it was too crazy. And probably the biggest WTF of the episode is that just as the leader is bargaining with the Congresswoman to gain tax-exempt status for the church, she pops his head, revealing that it was actually her behind the head-popping incident in the courtroom. Huey winds up joining her Office of Superhero Affairs inside the government. They're supposedly going to be regulating superheroes in Compound V. But here's the thing, she would have to be connected to Vought and Edgar on the DL, because all superheroes, remember, are made by Vought. Vought is very meticulous about tracking everyone with Compound V in their bodies. Their ultimate goal is getting power inside the White House, taking over the government, and what better way to rig that game than if they themselves were secretly running the government agency that was supposed to be watching them. It doesn't confirm that she's working for Edgar, but she probably has connections to him. So obviously that's going to be a big storyline during Season 3, and they are writing it right now. They won't start filming Season 3 episodes till February, so hopefully they get episodes out by the end of next year. I hope we don't have to wait till 2022 before getting new episodes. But if you spotted any big Easter eggs in the episode that I didn't mention in the video, just write them below in the comments. I'll do another Boys Season 3 episode in the next couple of days as well. The next big thing that's coming up is the Mandalorian Season 2 episodes. That's going to start in a couple weeks. I'll be doing episode videos for that. As long as you have alerts enabled for my channel, you should see all those videos. But everyone click here to learn about Doctor Strange showing up in Spider-Man 3 and then doing a bunch of live-action Spider-Verse stuff. And click here for the brand new Star Wars Mandalorian Season 2 trailer video. Thank you so much for watching. Everyone stay safe. I'll see you guys tonight.